25th true crime book I've done over 25 years. And I can honestly say that I've never written about anybody as dark and sociopathic as Alex Murdaugh.
A new book about Alex Murdaugh and his family's legacy in South Carolina's Low Country has some interesting information about birthday parties thrown from jail and family secrets swept under the rug. Thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime. I'm Angenette Levy. Alex Murdaugh is serving 2 consecutive life sentences in a South Carolina prison for the June 2021 murders of his wife Maggie and son Paul. Murdaugh is going to appeal his conviction and maintains he's not guilty of the murders.
I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife Maggie, and I would never hurt my son Paul.
Murdaugh still faces a number of charges related to financial crimes. He admitted during his double murder trial to stealing millions from his clients and his law firm.
Well, the jury's heard about testimony of you stealing client funds. Did you do that?
I did.
Did you steal or divert that Ferris fee away from the law firm?
I did.
How did you get in such a financial predicament that led you to steal money that wasn't yours?
No, I'm not quite sure how I let myself get where I got, but it came from, I battled that addiction for so many years. I was spending so much money on pills.
A number of documentaries have been made about the Murdaugh case. Now a new book is out by John Glatt. It's called Tangled Vines, Power, Privilege, and the Murdaugh Family Murders. Glatt said he immersed himself in low country culture by visiting Hampton County, the Murdaugh seat of power, for a century.
I think the Murdaughs have been they've had their hands in the pie for more than a century, in fact. I mean, Buster Murdaugh, in the 50s, that's Alex's grandfather, was in fact indicted for his role in bootlegging around there, illegal whiskey stills, tipping off the bootleggers before the police raid so they could sort of hide it and everything. And he was indicted. He was found not guilty, but even the judge there was very, very suspicious and thought he was kind of a blemish on legal system in South Carolina and told him that. But they were very, very popular, the Murdaughs. They were kind of natural politicians. They knew how to get on with everybody, and they were people persons. So that's how they got away with it for so long, because they would get re-elected with, in a landslide every time there was a new election for solicitors. And I mean, they actually represented 5 counties in the Low Country, from Hampton to Beaufort, huge swath of area. In fact, I think it's one of the biggest, power bases in South Carolina. And they basically ran it like a fiefdom, for over 100 years. So they were not just judiciary, they were law and order, they were the politicians, they really ran everything, and they could get away with murder, as I was told on more than one occasion by people.
Mm. Did you run into people who actually respected and liked the family, and people who said nice things? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, because they were very, very good to people. I mean, especially in Hampton, there was a thing called the Hampton juries, which were, feared by anybody doing civil lawsuits in Low Country, because basically wherever you were in South Carolina, wherever the accident took place, if the company like Ford or a train company had a presence in Hampton County, it could be tried there. So it would go to Hampton counties, who the Murdaughs kind of were friendly with. They knew everybody in Hampton, and they would kind of give them presents at Christmas and this. And if somebody had an illness in the family, the Murdaughs would be round there to help. So these jurors would award huge kind of $1 million, things in lawsuits. And that was a real thing. And that's how their civil practice, PMPD, became so successful. So people really liked the Murdaughs. They saw them as benefactors. In fact, and a lot of people I spoke to had personal stories about how they'd been helped by the Murdaughs.
Mm. Interesting. So so they have this stranglehold and all this power, but at the same time, they're viewed as great benefactors to the community. So it seems like kind of a way to almost maintain power, if you would.
Absolutely, and it worked for a very, very long time, I think, through all the generations. And it was only because of Alex Murdaugh and he was a bit too open with how successful he was. I mean, his previous generations have been very quiet about, what they owned. They had normal cars. They didn't kind of boast about everything they had. But Alex and Maggie, who was really big on social media, they started posting about their foreign trips in private planes and everything they did. And I think that kind of was the beginning of the end, It kind of they got too big for their boots, I think.
Glatt's research led him to believe that Alec and Maggie Murdaugh were more willing to show off their wealth than other members of the family. Glatt also believes the boat crash that killed Mallory Beach was the beginning of the end for Alec Murdaugh. Paul Murdaugh was charged with driving the boat while drunk, causing Mallory's death and injuring others.
That's where it started, with the boat crash in 2019. I mean, Paul was very, very drunk. He was streaming a lot of it on Snapchat and everything. And unfortunately, he killed Mallory Beach. And I think Mallory Beach's family were concerned.
That boat case settled last month in civil court with insurers for Parker's Kitchen, the convenience store where Paul Murdaugh bought alcohol with a fake ID, agreeing to pay the Beach family $15 million. The others who were injured will get $1 million, so that chapter is closed. In writing the book, Glatt says he learned some other things about the family, including a birthday party Alec Murdaugh planned for Paul, the son he was accused of killing in April of 2022, before his double murder trial.
Well, this was revealed in Freedom of Information Act phone calls, which I got access to, and I went through about over 200 of them methodically. And I think April 14th, 2022, which was before he was actually, indicted for the murder of Paul and Maggie, he was talking to Buster, and they'd been working through a third party to arrange a 23rd birthday party for Paul at the Shem Creek Bar in Charleston Harbor. And Alex was asking him how it was going, and Buster said that, everyone was being invited. It was getting a lot of airing on social media, and Alex was very happy because he wanted to celebrate Paul's birthday, which, I just think this was another way of showing that he was innocent, by throwing a party for his son, which he was later, found guilty of murdering.
I find it odd, and I've never lost a child, so I don't know how I would react, to want to throw a birthday party for my son who had been murdered.
Yeah, I think this was before the trial, obviously, and he hadn't been arrested for murder, but he was trying to show that, he was the grieving father looking after, the welfare of Paul on his 23rd birthday. And also that Mother's Day, he made a big point of asking Buster and his sister-in-law to prod Buster into putting flowers on Maggie's grave. And he kept asking in repeated phone calls whether that had been done. So he was trying to give the air of the caring father, and widower, when in fact, a jury found him guilty of killing Maggie and Paul later.
Glatt said he also found out about an incident involving Paul and a wild party at a rental home.
I heard from a very close friend of the person that rented a house to Paul Murdaugh and various friends a few summers before he died. They took over a summer house, which was actually very close to Maggie's Beaufort house, but they wanted their own house. And they methodically trashed it, and they would throw tomato ketchup over everything, beer, and they get very drunken brawls, and they were streaming everything on Snapchat. And eventually, when the owners came, they were horrified because they'd caused thousands of dollars worth of damage. And then when they approached Alex and the other fathers, Alex made it good, paid thousands to hush it up because he didn't want the bad publicity.
Finally, Glatt's response was revealing when I asked this question.
Is this one of the strangest stories you've covered in your years?
Absolutely. It's the 25th true crime book I've done over 25 years. And I can honestly say that I've never written about anybody as dark and sociopathic as Alex Murdaugh. I mean, he just defies anything, just the way he has total zero empathy with anybody, and he can look you in the face and steal the shirt off your back, literally, which is what he did to his clients. He's so cold and whatever. But I think at the trial, the high point of the trial for me and probably everyone else was when Alex took the stand against the advice of his lawyers and actually thought that he could con the jury into finding him not guilty or getting a hung jury, which he'd done. He'd been good with jurors, obviously, to get these successful payouts in the civil case. But to see him do it, in real life and then get found out by the jurors who took 3 hours to find him guilty, I think was, amazing.
Alex Murdaugh's appeal will likely take many more months to prepare. His trial on the financial crimes charges have not yet been scheduled. For Law and Crime, I'm Angenette Levy.